Hey everybody, welcome back to Ha Man's Advice Forum. I am the Ha Man, and I posted Ask Me Anything on the 16th of May. Today's the 23rd, and let's answer all your questions. First question by Chris Reagan. An estimated 88,000 deaths occur due to alcohol usage in the U.S. per year. The number of people obese in the U.S. is 42.4% as of 2017-18 CDC. In addition, there are several sources that project over half the U.S. population will become obese by 2050. I could go on with the facts that show the truth health crisis in the U.S., but I'll get to the question. My question is why when junk food, alcohol, and drug usage are problems in society, almost no one seems to care and the economy seems to actually do better due to making profits off of addiction. However, when there is a virus that has a low mortality rate, mainly affects people with pre-existing conditions, and I also believe most of the time, if you take decent care of yourself, you'll be okay. It becomes worthy of shutting down the economy and making the news headlines every day. It seems to me that people only worry about health when it's out of their control, but the real worry should be opposite when health is within a person's control. And you know what, Chris? I totally agree with you 110%. And I don't know if it's kind of like my thinking has, I've brainwashed you, or maybe you've always thought that way, or I'd have some kind of influence you. But I feel like you're repeating the things that I've talked about for many, many years. And the fact that, there's so many things that people can do to improve their life situation, and whether it's financially or their health, and they don't do any of it, right? Like if you look at the average statistics with just finances, average person, even before the whole CV thing happened, couldn't even come up with $400 in savings, right? So if they had an emergency, they were screwed. But then if they didn't have bad spending habits, they would never be in that situation. It's the same thing with their health. Like if they eat junk food or alcohol or drink alcohol or use drugs, they'd be a lot better off. And that's really, and in many ways you kind of answer your own question, because the reason why people don't worry about these things is because the media is almost like a church to the masses. So whether you're a Democrat, Republican, religious, non-religious, it's almost another form of church, because we question, like for example, the news. We see it and we don't question what they say. We just accept the news anchor, who you could call like the priest of the church, or the minister, at face value. But then they have an agenda, because they're a business too. They have to make money, and the way that they make money is by sponsorships. And like the biggest sponsors of news, of the news media, is like food companies, the big agri-food companies, the pharmaceutical companies. And so they've conditioned the people to think in a way that that they have no sense of personal responsibility in their own health, which is why they always talk about things like, they never talk about things like nutrition, but they always talk about things like a vaccine, something that's going to be government mandated. And because most people are asleep at the wheel, they just they're just in autopilot mode. And this is something I talked about for a while now. They really are just literally in autopilot mode, and they can't really just kind of think for themselves. I mean, for me, the reason that kind of thinking never like was acceptable to me, because I've been in, I guess like serious situations where it was almost like a life and death situation. I've almost been homeless like 3 times. So when you've been at that point where you're, freaking the fuck out because, $50 in bank is like going to make or break you, and you can't pay the rent, and you're so scared about the next month, then that will, I don't know if it'll force you to change, but it will really make you think, like, how do I make money? Like, what am I doing wrong, right? And that's why right now I'm in an okay financial position. I'm not like in the best financial position, but I'm in an okay financial position because I've learned what not to do in terms of like making money and not becoming broke. And same with my health. I almost lost my health, where it's like, okay, I can't eat the candy, I can't eat the junk food, I can't eat like at McDonald's ever, because if I do, I know my health is gonna fail because I was almost in a health crisis and I almost died. So for me, I guess because it was like I was in a make or break situation. I didn't have the luxury of being able to just coast. I think what happens is that if you're in a situation where you're pretty much going to be like effed over by society, you have this hardcore intense reaction of trying to learn everything you can so that whatever crisis happens to you never happens to you again. And I guess that's what happened to me. Like, I didn't have the luxury of being able just to be at that sweet spot that most pharmaceutical and junk food companies want. They don't want you to be dead because they can't profit off of you, and they don't want you to be healthy because they can't profit off of you. So they just want you to be like constantly at a low level of sickness so they can just kind of feed you drugs. And that's the state of the human condition, unfortunately. Like, that's really sad. But yeah, and you kind of did answer your own question, but I think you're just looking for affirmation of the way that you think. And I'm amazed that you're repeating to me a lot of things that I've talked about over the years. And I know I haven't been active in YouTube just because I've been working on my own stuff outside of cyberspace or the internet. But I'm glad to hear that this is how you think, and I hope that you take personal responsibility for your own health, that you buy a juicer, that you only buy organic food, because the more money you spend on those things, it's a signal to the marketplace saying, hey, this is what you want, right? And the marketplace will produce more of it. So, for example, if you buy junk food and soda and fast food, you're telling the marketplace, and people always look at the data like, hey, this is what the consumer wants, and then so they're gonna build more of that. That's why they're building fast food restaurants, in not just in the poor neighborhoods, but everywhere. Like, you go like every couple of half miles or whatever, there's like a fast food restaurant, right? Whereas in Whole Foods, they're only in the rich areas because the rich people are more likely to realize more than the poor people the importance of taking care of yourself, which is why they're willing to pay an extra dollar or two for the organic foods. And these companies always do their research. Whenever they build a new store, they place it strategically in certain areas because they know, and they do demographics research, which is why, like, if you kind of look at locations of Starbucks and Chipotle, they never ever build in like C-class neighborhoods. They never do it. And it's an interesting study in like urban planning. But like, if you go to a poor neighborhood, you'll never see a Chipotle or a Starbucks. You'll see like even two Starbucks right next to each other in the A-class neighborhoods, but in the C-class neighborhoods, they never build a Starbucks, because they do the research. But and my point is that even in those neighborhoods, sometimes you have options that are bad for you, like Starbucks, but you also have the healthier options. And I think there's a lot more health conscious people in the rich neighborhoods and the poor neighborhoods, because in the poor neighborhoods, you could say it's almost like a conspiracy where they'll just like feed them junk and think that they'll be okay. But yeah, man. Glad to hear that this is the way you think, and maybe I'll create my my army. Everybody's talking about that phrase, army. The Haman's army. But anyway, I hope I answered your question. So let's move on to the next one by Jim Grime. I was wondering if you could elaborate more on the idea of not being able to trust more people. You mentioned a few times there was a radio show where you heard that the average person would rather steal $1 from you than make $1 million with you. From my perspective, if people really thought about the fact that we live in cubicles having little knowledge of our neighbors, the school and workplace become networks rather than communities, and the number of people that we genuinely know is almost zero, maybe then maybe then the people wouldn't be as rude and try to get to know their neighbors. And I agree with you too, and I feel like you, just like Chris, are kind of repeating to me the things that I've said, which means I've also had a great influence in your life, which is kind of hard for me to believe because in real life that doesn't really happen. But I think the the part where you talk about networks rather than communities, that's from John Taylor Gatto's book, Dumbing Us Down. I think it was like chapter 4, why we need less school, not more. And I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned that part, the fact that we don't live in a community, the fact that the way that we communicate with each other in all aspects of our social life is more business than it is personal, and that we can't have a healthy mix of both. And you know what's funny is that in certain places, I feel like everything is more business-like than you would think it would be. And in certain places, like, wow, I didn't expect it to be that way. For example, in my personal life, in the church group that I participate in, I was told in the group chat to not really participate because I speak too much of my mind, and it's only for church announcements. So I just don't even speak to that group anymore. But then in like business related stuff, people are telling me like their personal lives and details, and just like, like who they're frustrated by, and they're sharing like all these details with me. And it's like, wow, I didn't really expect that. And sometimes, so you find little connections in the most unexpected of places. And I really think that's the beauty of human nature, or just the world in general, where we can learn how to surprise ourselves if we really live in a genuine and authentic manner, of where we're able to express who we truly are. I think, where I heard that, if you didn't know, was the Alex Jones show, when I used to listen to him, and I still listen to Alex once in a while. Where that came from was when he talked about how his father had a great influence on him. His father was a dentist, David Jones, and he has a practice in Austin. And I don't know if he's retired yet, but he was a dentist, and he had a great influence on Alex. And he would tell Alex, like, son, you can't trust most people in life, because most people would rather steal $1 from you than make $1 million with you. And I heard that, and I remember thinking to myself, I thought like that at a certain point, but I just didn't know how to express it. It was a really bizarre moment where it's just like, this is a person who knows how to express a lot of things that I've been thinking, but I didn't know how to express it in words. And I really do think that we do need to live in a community where we see all parts of each other, not just the good parts. And I think that's the problem with society, is that they're only just trying to show the good parts, like an Instagram photo or a YouTube video, where we're not seeing the real you. You guys know I'm the real me, and you guys know that I'll tell you guys my struggles and the things I've been through. This is why I talk about, like, in my previous years, like, these are the scam jobs I've been part of, because, hey, I did it. I had my time wasted, although there were some positives here and there. I'll tell it to you all, and you guys know I'll be real with you, which is why I do have the hardcore following of the 4 or 5 people that I have, even though I don't ever edit my videos, I don't make thumbnails and all that. And I really do think that a lot of the depression that we see in society is because we just can't be how we truly feel, or who we are with the people around us, because there's this pressure to keep up with the Joneses, right? Whether we used to be able to keep up with the Joneses with material things. Now we have to keep up with the Joneses with the Instagram, Twitter, and all that. And if we don't think the right way, then the cancel culture mob will come after you. But I always advocate genuine free expression and who you are. And there's no, you should never be afraid to express yourself in front of others, even if people, but most of the world doesn't want to, wants to live in delusion. You have to be very well aware of that, which is why you have to be a leader of your own community and say the things that are not popular, or that people don't want to touch, because it's very likely in where you live, people can't honestly express themselves and who they are. And this is a lot of things that Bruce Lee talked about too. But I don't remember what context it was from. But I always remember they used to talk about, like, about true expression and how that's freedom, and you also have to live a life that's worth remembering. That's how you become immortal. I really loved hearing that. But What's your question, actually? I don't remember what your question is. Um, okay, so you just wanted me to elaborate how you just can't trust more people. So back to that point, I mean, this is where I talked about how, so many people have this expectation that they have to scam you or get something out of you in order for them to succeed. They have to put you down in order for them to succeed. And that's why there's so much bullying in the world, at all ages and all groups. And now I don't believe that. I feel like we can always learn and grow together. And I'll give you an example of this. For example, when I was an arcade player, I always knew that I would be my best if I had other players who would play with me and help. Who would always beat me. And the more I lost, the more I learned, and I would beat them. And the more they lost, we would be leveling up together, almost like in an RPG, right? Like you notice, like in the Final Fantasy games, you don't level up individually; you level up in groups, right? And that's how I see real life as well. But unfortunately, the school system teaches you that cooperating with others is cheating, and because of that, people, once they've had the 12 years of conditioning, mandatory conditioning in the school system, once they become adults, they really internalize that you're not supposed to help others, and that it's okay to leave other people behind, which is really stupid and unfortunate. But yeah, that's kind of my elaboration on what you're asking, and I totally agree that in order to have healthy human beings, we need to be able to express ourselves and who we are to the individuals around us, and we just can't always, both the good and the bad. And I know in modern society, people only want to see the good, and then get bothered when you have actual problems, and they don't want to hear it, right? They don't want to hear it. But you have to be the leader of your own little group or society, and realize that you'll encounter a lot of resistance, but you will. I really think if you just keep at it, you will make that change. And even with you guys, let's say the three people who answer the questions, I've heard from time and time again that I've changed your life. Even though to me it was Tuesday, quoting M. Bison from Street Fighter 1994 movie. Okay, let's go to the third question by Ryan Boone. You say a couple of questions if you have time. Hey, you know what? Don't say if you have time, because when you say that, you're not valuing the questions you want to ask. Just say, hey, a couple of questions. All right, so let's see what the next questions are. All right, your question is, Gutek started making Street Fighter content again. Have you checked it out? It seems more mature and philosophical. He even seems to mirror some of your philosophies on fighting games. Just wondering your thoughts if you've seen it. So that's your first question. Let me answer that first. I haven't seen Gutek's content in a while, and I feel like he was a pioneer back in 2009 when Street Fighter 4 came out, because I think before then, no one really had the idea that you could film yourself playing video games. It was like a very foreign concept, even though we have like Twitch and, so many people are filming themselves doing not just like playing video games, but doing everything. Like Twitch is almost like, I don't know if it's like a new YouTube, but it's just all live streaming, and people film themselves just chatting and playing the piano. And back then, that was really that really thinking was just foreign, and so he really was a pioneer. But I think the problem with dedicating yourself to a franchise like Street Fighter is that you're almost dependent on your livelihood being linked to the release of a video game. And since every iteration of a video game is different, like let's say you move from Street Fighter 3 to Street Fighter 4, that's different from Street Fighter 4 to Street Fighter 5. And I think a lot of what happened is a lot of OGs were turned off by Street Fighter 5 because the gameplay mechanics were so different. And I only played Street Fighter 5 for like 3 times, and it wasn't really that long, and I kind of got bored with it. And it's also my age too. I mean, I just get bored by fighting games, and even when I play video games these days, I don't remember playing because it's like me speaking. I've played it so long that it's so ingrained within me that nothing I do is really significant in my mind. But I have looked at some pictures of Gutex, and he seems like he definitely looks like he's past his prime, because I see him balding. You know, he's probably not taking care of himself, and so he might be a little depressed. But I don't know because I don't know Gutex. But you say that he seems to mirror some of my philosophies on fighting games, and I'd say, you know, because we came from the same era, we were '90s arcade kids. So back then, you know, the environment shaped you, right? And that's why anyone who played arcade games in that era, we all came to the same philosophies. Where it's like Alex Valle, Gutex, Mike Ross, or me, we're all from that arcade era. Even DSP Gaming has that mentality that from that '90s arcade era. We were all part of it. Whereas nowadays, fighting game players have a very different mentality that I've never understood. Like when people like ask for like nerfing down characters, to me it was like you adapt or you die, right? Because if you don't adapt, you're not gonna have you know, you're gonna lose your money. So you have to. It's either a do or die, right? And that's what a lot of us '90s kids, we naturally develop that mentality just from being in that environment. And when you say it seems mature, I'm pretty sure that he had a nervous breakdown. You know, like Mike Ross, where he's like, "What am I going to do with my life?" Because he, obviously, you know, he's a good hustler, but when you're in your 30s, hustling gets really tiring and really old. So, but I haven't seen it because I don't know. I think sometimes when I see Gutex talking on camera, he just looks tired, and it kind of turns me off. So. And your next question is, do you think I should participate in social media, or do you think social media participation is required to be successful in life now? In some ways, it seems like it's a requirement, but I also don't want to become a fake version of myself. I'm currently not on anything, and I don't put on any content. So the question to that is, I think no. I think human face-to-face skills are the most valuable skills that you will have. And I actually did that for 2 years, even though I didn't get paid that much, where I would like talk to random strangers throughout my working day to get them signed up for products. And I think that's helped me out a lot in life because I don't really ever feel nervous talking to people and soliciting them about things, about just things in general. And I think those skills, because they're so rare, will be the most valuable. Like when I'm with old people really appreciate me because I'm the only one in my age group who can just hold a conversation, right? And because most people are so sucked into that digital screen, you know, they don't even know what's going around in the world around them. And so no, I don't really think it's necessary. I mean, if you look at the richest people on earth, they don't use social media. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. You know, I think he just lives in a house in Nebraska. And from what I remember, last time I went to Berkshire Hathaway's webpage, it looks like it was written in like, it was made in like the late 1990s or something like that. And so, you know, like really, and even think about like how about Hollywood movie stars, right? The richest people in the entertainment business or any business in general are not in the front lines. They're not in front of a camera. They're behind the scenes. And that's, you know, in order to become rich, you have to have power. And having power is just purely psychological about how you think of yourself. So if you think that you're not good enough, you will never be good enough. But if you think you're the boss or the manager or whoever, then that's who you'll be. And that's how society is. Society is almost like a game of whoever's like the biggest narcissist wins, unfortunately. I have my own modified version of that game where, yes, I am going to think of myself as an important person, but I'm going to serve others and help other people, even if they don't, even if they attack me for trying to help them, which will happen a lot in your life. Yeah, and that's just how I think. So no, you don't have to participate in social media. And the people who remember you the most will be in, you know, will be the people you've seen face to face. Like, for example, even though I've seen your comments a lot, I'd have much more impact if you're in your life if we actually met together in person. But that'll probably never happen because I don't know. We'll see. Even though a lot of you guys, maybe the three of you in my channel comment want to meet me. So you also asked your question is, how are you doing personally during the pandemic? Have you been told not to come into work? Are you worried about your financial future? I sure am. I'm doing okay, and I'm doing much better than I was 2 years ago when I was flat broke. If you're part of a business where you don't have to go to a workplace, and you know you'll be okay, right? It's 2020. We can use the internet to work, and if you couldn't, if just as long as you value your time and you're not working for free, you'll be, people will pay you money for your skill or services that you put out to the marketplace. But no, I've not been told to come into work because I haven't been in a workplace for the past year. And I'm in a very fortunate position to be that way. Most people are not in that position. And, even if they work from home, they don't have the structure or the, I don't want to say discipline, but I guess the infrastructure to be part of a company or a group that can be global and mobile and work anywhere they want. And I kind of am worried a little bit about my financial future, meaning that if the economy totally collapses, then we're all screwed. But for right now, assuming that if things get just a little bit better, I'm not worried at all. Right. So that's how I'm feeling right now. But all right. So those are the end of your questions. I don't think there's anything more. I think there's a spam question, but I'm not going to answer that. But all right. So if you have any thoughts, comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.